welcome back. I'll look this way because we got cameras all over the place. But Congressman Garrett Graves has joined us earlier. We appreciate him being in the area, and he's we sort of watching. If we could go to the radar too, Jason, and just show people what they're experiencing west of us. And let me bring that into play. This is west of us. That's Patterson and Morgan City and Pierpont. Remember, we always talk about those training effects. They're in the training effect right now. So what a difference 20 or 30 miles makes on these training effects. And then you come back and you look at, and I'll make a circle.
What's east of us?
Yeah, east of us right here. You just,
Is that it? St. Charles Parish?
right here when you get to Napoleonville and Shreva and Houma, all the way to Montague and Chauvin. Grand Isle, Golden Meadow getting a little rain, but if you look in that circle, those feeder bands, and I'll take it off and I'll go to the floodgate shot. Let me take this circle off for you so that we can see, but it proves that you're getting that feeder band over the Golden Meadow floodgate right now. And let's see what Grand Isle, let me take that off again. Bear with me, folks, we're gonna get there. There's yeah, Raceland's right on the outskirts, but you see Golden Meadow on a feeder band, and Grand Isle really not getting a whole lot right now, but that could change shortly. But let me ask you this, Congressman, as we talking. Reggie Dupree stepped off because he's trying to get you some floodgate levels that are coming up. We've seen over the years that it takes a disaster to get monies to be funded. Once they're funded, though, they stay in place for a long time, like Katrina, like Baton Rouge, certain things. Is that sort of the way it works? And I know that frustrates you because you've been through it.
It is frustrating, and oftentimes that's what you see. For example, you can look at Hurricane Katrina. It took the death of 1,500 people to come in and spend $15 billion building projects that date back in some cases to the 1970s. And of course, Katrina was in 2005. For the Baton Rouge area, for the capital region, you had projects that dated back 30 years, and the river region projects dated back 40 years, and it took a 1,000-year flood in the area to finally get those projects pulled forward and fully funded. The good news at this point is that a lot of the backlog projects, the West Shore project, the Comite project, the Baton Rouge area flood control project, all the New Orleans projects, those were all competing with Morganza, and now to a large degree that deck has been cleared. And so what we've been trying to do is help convince the federal government that they've got to stop this reactive approach. I'll give you a number just to tell you how bad it is. Since 1980, there have been over 220 disasters that have cost over $1 billion each. There have been over 220 of them. We spent $1.7 trillion in response to those disasters. Almost all of that is deficit spending.
Reactive, not proactive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so just like, Tony and Councilman Trusty were talking about, with the investments, the work that has been done down here, we just saved taxpayers' money. We just saved, from the cumulative disaster, all the investments we've made down here, probably over $1 billion. I saw AccuWeather just posted something early this morning saying their estimates on the damages from this storm are $8 to $10 billion. I guarantee you we're going to come in at a fraction of that. So just like they were talking earlier, how about giving us a portion of that cost savings? So we have been trying to, and we've made some progress to flip this whole thing over. You talked about proactive versus reactive, and that's how we've been trying to flip it over, because the federal government's been reactive, trying to make them understand that they can come in and make the investments on the front end. You are going to save exponentially more dollars, and of course, prevent the economic disruption, prevent the destruction of homes and families and other impacts.
Let me ask you a crazy question. So Terrebonne and LaFourche saved all this money, but our insurance rates are still going out the roof. Why can't we get a bonus on our, I mean, if you save and you protect your parish, why don't we get a deduction?
Yeah. Well, and it's a really good point. So what we did is last year we changed the law to where you can actually get a lower cost share. Normally when a disaster happens, it's 75% federal and 25% non-federal, parish and state. We reduced that non-federal share for states and parishes and counties that step up and actually make proactive investments. You can get a reduction on your disaster cost share, trying to incentivize that. But more importantly, we really have to, we can't afford to continue spending $1.7 trillion like we have in recent decades. We've got to flip this thing over. We were able to get a big slug of money last year. We got about, in total for the country, probably over $20 billion in new flood mitigation investments. We're trying to channel some of the money down here in Terrebonne Parish, but I'm feeling pretty good that we're on the best trajectory we've been on in a long time for this project. In addition to all the money that's been invested, $420 million so far, some of that federal, some of that state, and of course all the local tax money that the community has invested here. I do think we're going to be able to come in, show their skin in the game, show that this project pays for itself, and we can get some additional federal investment.
Let me ask you, Tony, where do we go from here? Because I know y'all been boots on the ground, and Mr. Parish President, both Mr. Parish President, you saw what happened. It gives you a good template now of what protection means and what it can do. So, but I know y'all too well. You're gonna be driving sheet pilings probably, you know, in the near future, in back of Montague.
In addition to other things.
Yeah, but so you don't rest on your laurels. I
Right.
guess that's the key point here, because we could get complacent here and say, well, we beat a big system, but guess what? We're in July.
You know, I think what happened with that system, that wasn't the effect that it had. It had the opposite effect. Maybe we could have done this different. Maybe we could have done this faster. You know, we hadn't flooded in how long? 10 years, 12 years, something like that, 10 years? It's been a while.
Been a while.
It's been a long time, and so you feel like you're aggressive and you're doing everything you can, and I think we are.
Like
But-
lift doors. I guess what they call them on the gateway, it lets the rainwater
Yeah.
seep, but what do they call
Right,
that?
right,
Flap
flap gates.
Flap gates.
Flap
Yeah.
gates, okay.
Yeah, and we could put those on a couple of more of our floodgates.
Okay.
You know, those things, we started doing that at some point. We need to go back and put it on all of them. And those things would happen in addition to J2 driving sheet pile.
Right.
Maybe getting the contractors to move a little faster on the west side, right? Even though we've been flooding from east to west, now we're really concerned about the west, right? While we're under construction,
Well, the strategy was east to west because most of the storms
It hits you
come
from east to
but
west,
this one
right?
comes-
well, it hit us
one in the
east too,
west.
though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, so there are a lot of things that happen that make you maybe a little bit more vigilant and maybe a little bit more even aggressive than you have been.
But
to
look what's
not
coming
just-
down the pipe, Bayou Shane, which of course Congressman Gray is very familiar with. Bayou Shane, that's big. And how many years, when are we trying to complete Bayou Shane?
2021, 2022.
Yeah, wow. What's the dynamics of that? Explain to the people, Gordon, what Bayou
Well,
Shane's gonna mean
well,
to
that's
the whole
gonna stop.
system.
See, imagine right with this hurricane coming up the way it did, right through Morgan, right through St. Mary Parish, we already had the backwater flooding. If that temporary barge wouldn't have been there, we'd have had, according to the graphs, as much as 6 feet of water pushed through a 1,500-foot channel that is like 35 feet deep. It would have threw a lot of water on us because the Homer Navigation, the Chafalaya spiked at Morgan City to 9 feet. We looked at according to the graph, and so what happened is the hurricane pushed the water along with the backwater flooding at the same time because the river don't stop. The river's still pushing the water down the Chafalaya. And without that barge in there, it really would have had a lot of water in Terrebonne
So
Parish
that
on the
bar-
western
that
end.
barge stopped 38 inches when we covered a few years back from the riverine flooding. It stopped 6 feet of water?
About 6 feet of water.
That's incredible.
It's very incredible.
Well, that's,
because it's,
what would that cost us, 8 million, 7,
yeah,
8 million?
$8 million to put it in place.
Well, wasn't that a great $8 million
Right.
when we
And
look
then-
back at it now?
And then we in the western side of the parish, we still had the sheet piles in Highway 20 at those 5 canals from the backwater flooding. We still had all the temporary pumps pumping out the Chacahula Basin. So our Chacahula Basin will range from about 1.2 to 1.4 feet. That's it. Right now it's 1.4 feet after a hurricane. That's unheard of. Well, we've never heard of that. Remember, we were up to 3 feet before they put that barge in.
Right.
Just show you what that barge did to the Chacahula Basin and how important Bayou Shane is. And Garrett knows a lot about Bayou Shane because we started it by looking at it, trying to do it
Yeah,
8,
when he
9
was-
years
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Huh, Garrett?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, so what was the process of Bayou Chene? That was a long,
Well,
drawn-out process.
it was, and this was, this was the third time it's been put in. I did it in, 2011, 2016, and then this year. The process is I think early on, it was largely I think a kind of a hypothesis. We think this will work. But in 2011, when we put it in, you could actually see the surge differential. It was crystal clear that it made sense, which then justified it in the two subsequent cases when it was put in. We ended up adding it to the state's coastal master plan, and of course, having then Chairman Dove of the Natural Resources Committee making it pretty clear that that needed to be in there. It certainly brought it to our attention, but that project now, it's in the master plan, it's in the funding plan, and it's fantastic that we were able to have that thing in place, of course, for very different reasons, expecting Morganza to be open, because as was noted, it certainly saved a lot of flood damages that otherwise would have occurred.
And you know what else, Gary? A lot of people, you know, but a lot of people don't realize, they were gonna open up Morganza Spillway to 150 CFS. Its capacity is 600 CFS. Remember, we were looking at a lot of water just with 1/4 of it opening.
Yeah.
If they ever need to save Baton Rouge and New Orleans, they're gonna open it up to 600 CFS, and we better be ready. That's how important that barge is.
Yeah.
You know, that floodgate on Bayou Chene.
What you're saying, we're not the priority to New Orleans and Baton Rouge, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right.
There you go. All right, we'll take a short break and we'll let people, I know a lot of people have busy schedule, but I know, Reggie Dupre's trying to load up some slides so we can see the waters that were actually stopped at certain levels, and we're gonna get to that in a second, but, we'll take a short break. We'll be right back.